being old and not having any money, and panicking because you're old and don't have any money, or because I don't have any money anyway. I'm having a snafu with my bank. As I might have mentioned, I'm down here in Ecuador, and my bank is up in Maine, and that's where my Social Security, my little government stipend comes from. And the ATM machine no longer likes my card, so I was on hold at the bank for a long time, and they said, "Oh, there's something weird going on here. We'll have to take a look at it." Well, this sends a little bit of panic. Not much panic, but mild panic through me, because I would say down here you need money to live, but I think you need even more up north. But you need something anywhere. That's one of the consistencies from place to place. Money lubricates the mechanism of living, of paying rent, of buying fruit and vegetables, and of having a telephone, which is the problem that I'm having trouble with the bank because of. I got a T-Mobile 3-month plan when I was in the States last summer. I was up there to sell everything. Another move toward committing to living down here permanently, and to do anything on eBay, to sell stuff, you need a telephone. You need a telephone. It's practically a citizen ID, even more than the driver's license has been. So I got a T-Mobile 3-month plan, but I didn't renew it because I didn't think $500 a year was what I wanted to pay for a telephone. In hindsight, I would have paid it and then tried to find a better way while I was on there. I told somebody who was math challenged, I said, it's going to be $500 a month. $500 a year. I can't handle that. And they said, no. There's plans for only $40 a month. And I said, yeah, maybe that's the one I should get. That's $20 less than $500. So I was wrong. They're not doing the multiplication. Too much for me because I don't make that many calls. I use it for two-factor authentication, which you got to have if you're dealing with a bank, especially if you're overseas. You need a USA number. I've been on the phone with so many people. They're not my new friends, but they did try to help me, trying to get all this straightened out. If you see a contradiction in what I've said, I'll explain it. I was on the phone to the bank explaining that I had no phone. How did I do that? There is a service, one of many, several dozen international calling services. Well, I used one that lets me call the States for 3 cents a minute, but only to call, only outgoing. They do not assign you an incoming number. They say they just started in business and they don't have that yet. But in order to access the telephone system in the U.S., they have a pool of numbers, but that's not my number. It's the number that somebody sees on their caller ID and can't assign a name to because it's not really from me. So that's how that works. I might have got a little bit of injection of money into my Ecuadorian bank account. All of this is because I put off making the ultimate commitment, which is to have my Social Security sent here to a bank in Ecuador. I may just have to do that. Why am I reluctant to do that? I'm not quite sure. Maybe it's commitment resistance, something that guys are said to have a lot. I just can't make that final step across the yawning abyss between me and there, between the way I have lived and the way I live now. But we'll have to do it at some point. It got me to thinking, like I said, it doesn't matter whether you're down in South America or up in North America, you got to have money. Maybe 2 or 3 times as much up north as here, but it's still money. And I was thinking of all the people. I watched the nomadic people who are great presence more and more on YouTube, people that are living out of their van that have converted a step van or something into a mobile home, into a place they can live without paying rent. Very antisocial to do that, I think. But they do it, and in greater and greater numbers. And I had a little van, an E150, for 2 winters when I left Maine and went down to Florida and then out to Arizona and Southern California. It was interesting. When you reach your latter years, I'll be 80 in April, about a month away. When you reach that point, you pretty much made your decisions and you're not going to start a new plan. But this would have been 10 or 15 years ago. I would have converted a van. That's the challenge for me, building a little house. I built a tiny house, and that was fun. But building a little house on wheels. They're not paying rent. I don't think that makes you popular with municipalities and banks and folks like that, both of which are power centers. And when they don't like something, they can make that dislike felt. The people that are out on the road are enthusiastic. There's problems, but I don't know if they compare to the problem of coming up with that ridiculous mortgage or that ridiculous rent. I'm sure they don't. Well, if you can't afford it, you can't afford it. It doesn't matter how you feel about it. You know, your rent just went up. I see a lot of people saying that. I can't remember the guy's name, RV Life or On the Road Life or something or other. All these names are very forgettable. But anyway, a guy with a beard that's even bigger than mine does a real good show. He'll ask people, why did you go on the road? And they say it's real simple. I had $800 or $900 or $1,000 rent, and I was just barely managing that, and they bumped it up and said, that's it, I can't do it. You know, I got 3 months before the rent goes up to something I can't afford. I'm going to take what money I have and get one of those retired step vans and put insulation and wood on the interior and think about the Arizona desert. Put solar panels on the roof. Yeah, it's pretty cool, all the stuff they do in those vans. But if you don't want to go out there, or maybe you're already out on the road, the thing about money, if you're scraping by, even if you're scraping by, take a few dollars every week, every time you can, and put it in a safe place, because you may reach the point where you're desperate to be able to buy a can of beans, something like that. I'd much rather be in that circumstance if I was driving my house around the Southwest. Yeah, I could have done that, I should have done that, and I would have done that, but actually Ecuador makes more sense from the money standpoint. You don't have to be anywhere else to have trouble with the banking. But we'll work that out. It's too gosh darn much like one of the old board games that people used to play. I don't know if they do that anymore. Everything's on your telephone now. But there was a board game where you'd roll the dice and pick up a card, and it would say, I'm sorry, your bank says you don't exist. You can't have any money. Oh, that stops you. You can't roll the dice again. In the game of life, you have to have money to roll the dice to see what's going to happen to you next. Hopefully it's coming up 7, which I guess is a good number. They wouldn't let me play craps in the backyard, in the alley. They said I was too risk averse. Wouldn't take any chances. I don't know if I still am risk averse. I should be, probably. Take some money, set it aside, even if you can't afford it. I'm serious. It might be just enough to do the minimal you need to do at that moment. After that, you're broke again, but it's very much like a motorcycle. If you have a motorcycle, you got a gas tank that'll get you a couple of 100 miles, and you've got a reserve tank that'll get you to a gas station. So think of this as your 15-minute reserve. Oh, that's scuba diving, where you've got 15-minute emergency in a tank. You flip the switch, and you've got time to get to the surface and get out of the water so you can breathe air. Have $20 or $50 or a couple of $100 set aside, and don't mess with it, because that's your reserve tank. That's your reserve gasoline, just to get you to a place that'll hopefully allow you to solve the problem on a more long-term basis. something to think about. And the other thing is, do think about it. I put off thinking about this bank crap. Can I say crap? Caca. That's the Spanish word for it. I put off thinking about the bank stuff because it was uncomfortable. And then I had to think about the bank thing. So that's the other thing. If you got something that's going to be a problem later, for sure, take care of it now, bite the bullet, get yourself in the right mood, work on that problem. If it takes a while, the earlier you start, the better. Especially if you're old, because you only got so much time left to solve it. All right, take care of yourself, and the next time you see me, say hi. Ciao.